Caitlin Clark entered the WNBA with expectations as high as the spotlight was bright, yet instead of simply living up to the hype, she shattered it in just a few short months. Clark has rewritten the rookie record book, lifted a struggling franchise into the playoff picture, and made women's basketball a must-watch attraction for fans of every generation. Her rise has been so fast, so impactful, that it's difficult to find a parallel in any sport. What fans are witnessing isn't just promise. It's greatness unfolding in real time, and it's not just the fans who are noticing. Analysts, media personalities, even critics who once doubted her are admitting they underestimated Caitlin Clark's influence. Among those voices is one of the game's loudest and most respected. Shaquille O'Neal, the Big Diesel, has stayed in the spotlight since retiring, entertaining millions as part of Inside the NBA while never holding back his opinions on today's players. By his own account, Shaq got hooked on women's basketball largely because of Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, whose college battles captured the nation with LSU ties of his own. It was only natural for him to back Reese, proudly supporting her from the moment she squared off against Clark in the 2023 NCAA Final. Shaq has never been shy about his admiration. He has repeatedly called Angel Reese a generational talent, even going so far as to declare her the greatest player ever to come out of LSU, ranking her above both himself and the legendary Pistol Pete Maravich for a Hall of Famer with 4 NBA titles and an MVP award. That was a massive endorsement. The comment was so bold, in fact, that even Reese admitted she was taken aback by it.
Yeah, Shaq told me that I was the best player to come out of LSU. It puts a lot of pressure on me, and I feel like I haven't done anything.
When Shaq boldly called Angel Reese the best player ever to come out of LSU, it was a compliment so big even she admitted it weighed on her. It puts a lot of pressure on me, Reese said at the time, noting that she didn't feel she had achieved enough yet. But unlike Shaq or the legendary Pete Maravich, Reese could point to one accomplishment they never earned at LSU, an NCAA championship. That title win wasn't just a career milestone. It opened the door to major opportunities off the court. Thanks to the new NIL rules, Reese was able to secure a massive shoe deal before a final season in college, and instead of going with the expected giants like Nike or Adidas, she made a surprising move: re-signed with Reebok, a brand currently fighting for a return to its former prominence, and one with deep LSU ties. As Shaquille O'Neal himself now serves as Reebok's president of basketball operations, the partnership made headlines for multiple reasons, instantly cementing a very public connection between Shaq and Reese. From that point forward, O'Neal became more than just a fan. He positioned himself as something of an unofficial mentor, offering advice on the game, professionalism, and the many challenges a young star faces in the spotlight. Shaq never downplayed that bond. He was proud of it. By his own account, helping Reese was his way of giving back to another LSU standout he believed could carry the torch forward.
So I was just, telling her how to handle adversity, how to handle, controversy. And, with a person like her, you don't really want to come and say, do this and do that. I was just coming and, giving her encouraging words, just telling her, to hang in there.
It's never been entirely clear how close Shaquille O'Neal and Angel Reese really are behind the scenes. But one thing has always been obvious: Shaq made it known that he was firmly in her corner from the moment Reese turned pro. He positioned himself as one of her most visible backers, showing up at Chicago Sky Games, applauding her growth, and praising the broader rise of women's basketball, and with his role at Reebok tied to her success. His loyalty to Reese made perfect sense. That's why his latest comments landed with such impact after months of backing Reese. Shaq finally admitted that Caitlin Clark has separated herself as a player. To watch the shift came in the wake of Clark and the Fever dismantling Reese's Sky in a lopsided showdown, a game many believe locked up the Rookie of the Year race once and for all. She does everything right. Shaq said, "I never spoke about her because Angel is my girl, but I can truthfully say Caitlin Clark is for real. I'm watching her play, trying to be upset, but she just makes the right pass, makes the right play. Girls try to beat her up, and she doesn't complain. She's a great one even this early. She's a real deal. Much respect to her and her family, coming from a Hall of Famer who shared the floor with legends like Kobe, Penny Hardaway, Dwayne Wade, and LeBron James." Those words carry weight despite his long-standing ties to Reese and his business interest in her future. Shaq couldn't deny what Clark is doing, and that admission might mark a turning point if even Shaq, one of Reese's most loyal advocates, feels compelled to recognize Clark's dominance. How long can others in the media keep resisting? The Caitlin Clark effect has already proven undeniable. She made NCAA women's basketball the most watched sport in the country last year, and her momentum hasn't slowed since turning pro. In fact, it's only grown stronger. Every one of the top 12 most watched WNBA games in 2024 featured Clark's Indiana Fever, drawing between 1.2 and 2.3 million viewers apiece. To put that in perspective, the average NBA game last season drew 1.56 million. The WNBA All-Star Game, headlined by Clark, pulled in a staggering 3.4 million viewers, the league's biggest audience since its very first season back in 1997. Her impact is just as clear inside arenas. Last year, the Fever struggled to fill 4,000 seats per game. This season, they lead the league, packing nearly 17,700 fans a night. Those numbers don't just reflect hype, they translate into real revenue, reshaping the financial outlook for the Fever and the entire WNBA. And nobody understands a business side better than Shaquille O'Neal, a Hall of Fame big man turned savvy investor with a portfolio that stretches across dozens of industries, is always looking for the next big star to align with. And right now, Caitlin Clark isn't just changing the game, she is the game.
I wanted to start a business. The way I learned business was a gentleman gave me a book, The Dummy's Guide to Starting Your Own Business. When I was reading it, wasn't familiar with anything, but it was a chapter that really piqued my interest. Joint ventureship.
Right now is a very bad time to be a Caitlin Clark hater. She's playing at a near MVP level, dragging a franchise that was stuck in the basement into the playoffs while simultaneously putting them at the top of the league's revenue chart. She's a clear leader of her rookie class, the heartbeat of her team, and the one driving Indiana's resurgence. That's why so many commentators who once doubted her pro potential or who leaned toward Angel Reese are suddenly quiet. The same voices who took cheap shots for clicks are now walking back their words. Because speaking against Caitlin Clark today is simply ignoring reality. It's also an easy way to get swarmed by backlash online. Slowly but surely, the mainstream media is reaching consensus. Clark hasn't just lived up to the hype. She's blown past it with the exception of a few stubborn holdouts. Everyone now sees her as a new sheriff in town. And she doesn't fit the old stereotypes of a WNBA star after mesmerizing college crowds for years. Caitlin has somehow found another gear in the pros women's basketball, once relegated to off-age programming, is suddenly primetime material. In fact, other leagues now need to worry about competing for the spotlight. A perfect example came this September, when the Indiana Fever tipped off at the same time as the NFL's first ever game in Brazil, to the shock of many. Big voices in sports media openly said Clark's game was a better watch. Dave Portnoy, founder of Barstool Sports, didn't hold back. Honestly, only a fool will watch the NFL over Caitlin Clark right now. It's poetry in motion. It's art. It's beauty. It makes me want to cry tears of joy watching her play. That wasn't just talk. Portnoy backed it up with a $100,000 bet on the Fever to win the 2024 championship. A wild wager on a team that hadn't even sniffed the playoffs in years. But it showed how deep the Clark effect runs. Put this in perspective. 51% of Americans identify as NFL fans in 2022, 88 of the 100 most watched TV broadcasts were NFL games. If even a fraction of those fans cross over to Caitlin Clark in the WNBA, her potential audience is enormous. So the question becomes, has Clark finally won over the mainstream? Maybe it's too early to say definitively. A playoff stumble could bring the doubters back, but for now, the loudest voices, the ones who shape opinion, are rallying around her. That could be the final step in Clark's rise, becoming the face of the entire WNBA for years. Names like Brittany Griner, AJA Wilson, and Sabrina Ionescu carried the league, but the league desperately needed a breakout star with mass appeal at just 22 years old. Caitlin Clark looks like she's passed that audition with flying colors, and if you want a sign of how far she's come, just listen to Stephen A. Smith, the most powerful voice in basketball media, a man who lives on controversy, spoke about Clark with nothing but respect and admiration, calm, measured, and deliberate. He laid out exactly why Caitlin Clark is not just a phenom, but a once-in-a-generation force the sport should celebrate.
She's leading the league in assists. Since July 10th, she's the second leading scorer in the NBA behind Asia Wilson, averaging 23.8 points per game.
Caitlin Clark isn't just living up to the hype, she's rewriting history. She became the first rookie in WNBA history to record multiple triple-doubles in a single season, and she's leading the Indiana Fever into the playoff picture. That's not just talent, that's leadership right now. She's the obvious rookie of the year, and some even have her in the top tier of MVP candidate. Stephen A. Smith summed it up perfectly. What Clark is doing is undeniable. The numbers, the wins, the impact, they're all fact, but he also highlighted something bigger. Clark isn't just changing the scoreboard. She's changing the business of basketball sponsors, networks, and even her teammates are cashing bigger check because of the audience she brings. And unlike many athletes, Clark doesn't spend her time bragging about her brand. She just plays And everything she touches turns to gold. That's why Smith argues it's on the media to give her the recognition she's earned. Too many talking heads, he says, have tried to tear her down instead of lifting her up. Charles Barkley feels the same way. The Hall of Famer and TNT analyst has had enough of the disrespect Clark has faced this year. Barkley knows the power of sports media, and he didn't sugarcoat his frustration. People believe what we say on television. Just because you don't like someone, you can't get on TV and slander them. Caitlyn is incredible. Look at the attention she's brought to the game. Barkley, never one to mince words, called out the personal bias behind some of the criticism. And when a legend like him, someone who's seen both the business and the game from the inside, speaks up, it carries weight. His message was simple: stop the nonsense and give Clark her flowers. And while her critics shrink, her impact keeps growing. The WNBA has been transformed by her arrival. Viewership numbers that once lagged far behind the NBA are now reaching new heights on NBA TV. The most watched game of the past 12 months wasn't Steph Curry or LeBron James. It was Clark and the Fever against the Dallas Wings. That shift speaks volumes. More people are choosing to watch Caitlyn Clark than some of the NBA's biggest names, to a league that was long treated as basketball's little sister. That's a breakthrough moment. The real question now is how the WNBA will handle this surge with attendance, TV ratings, and online buzz skyrocketing. Fans are clearly ready for more women's basketball that could mean bigger salaries, more nationally televised games, and maybe even new franchises. Whatever happens next, one thing is certain: